Hello, my name is Karl James, and this is a podcast of a little talk that I am giving at an event called The Story in the Conway Hall in London. Matt Locke creates this amazing little event called The Story, and I wanted to create a version that could be shared wider than the couple of hundred people who will be there on Friday the 18th of February 2011. And this is that podcast.
What you're about to listen to is an edit created by the Dialogue Project, with the full permission of everyone involved in the conversation. If you can hear my voice clearly, the volume will be about right for you. Thank you for listening.
But in terms of who I am now, there's this phrase I learnt once when I was doing this coaching course that, don't become your story. And I sort of like that phrase because I know that I went through a stage of when I met people, for instance, I would almost tell them about the fact that I'd been raped before I even told them what my name was. It was very much like, this is my identity. I'm a survivor.
Who I am.
Yes, exactly. And then I actually was like, no, don't want to do that.
That was Jane. More from her later. Don't become your story, she says. Maybe we all become our story a bit. When I was thinking about what I could offer today, all the other speakers at the Story event create, instigate, imagine, invent stories, fictional stories. Whereas while I do have a role sometimes in helping to tell fictional stories, mostly as a theatre director these days, my real job, my day job, is to find, to retrieve, to extract, to reveal stories, true stories, in others. So I am less of a teller of stories, a storyteller, than I am a story listener. And perhaps some of you listening are also story listeners. Maybe we could become better listeners to each other, for each other, with each other. And if we were better story listeners, how might that affect the quality of the stories that we draw out and discover and find and reveal? So I'm just going to share just a little bit about how I listen to people and why I listen to people. Listening to me is a more powerful and important act than perhaps we sometimes think. And in a world where it seems we are obsessed with speed and screen, mostly thanks to the internet, I think maybe real listening is a rarer thing than it was, and we might be missing out. So, what is listening? Someone told me once, I won't take the credit for it. I'll take the credit for keeping it alive, but I won't take the credit for inventing it. That one way of understanding what listening is this. Imagine every word that you read, every 30-mile-an-hour sign, every advertising hoarding, every page of a book, every word on a screen, indeed, that as you read that word, it evaporated. That's really what listening is. It's a temporary form. And so really all we're left with is the change that's happened as a result of that listening. So what is the change that listening can create? I'd like you to listen now to just a small clip from a conversation I had with a man called Stephen. Stephen is a very good listener, and he and I were having a conversation, and he was kind enough actually to say in the conversation, he said, I see you're a very good listener. I see you're a very good listener. And I asked him how he could tell, and this is what he said.
The most obvious thing is that I find I'm saying things that I feel are quite magical, really. I mean, I don't mean that in any big... I don't mean it's me being clever. I just find I'm being articulate. And in a way, moderately precise here and there in a way that I couldn't be if I wasn't being really listened to.
So real listening enables others to be articulate, to tell their story articulately, their true story articulately. Why is this important, and how can we do it more? This is what I've decided to share, 3 examples of how I listen and why I listen. And I suppose my theory is that by listening generously, we enable others to refresh or reveal or to reappraise maybe their story. And I think there might be a link between the quality of our listening and the quality of the story that we listen to. So first example is a conversation with Chris. So I try to get to people and record conversations before the experience has become a story, whenever I can. It's often very hard, but this really is about generous listening. When I sat down with Chris, I wasn't a journalist looking for a killer headline. I wasn't a friend seeking to give unmitigated support or reassurance. I wasn't a doctor or a scientist looking to prove a theory or explain or cure. I was there just to help Chris articulate what he meant, what he felt, what he was thinking, and perhaps enable him to tell a story about an experience that was really very painful for him. This was a series, this conversation was in a series of others that I recorded on the subject of pain. I record conversations in the spring, edit them in the early summer, and then take them up to a festival in the UK called Latitude Festival. And when I spoke to Chris, he just, he was still in a really difficult time with his daughter Tegan. Tegan had been diagnosed with leukemia. And the conversation I had with him was about how he handled quite an intense period in his life and how he handled his relationship with Tegan. Chris's wife Jackie found visits to the hospital almost unbearably difficult, so Chris found himself with Tegan a lot and in quite an intense way. So that's the background to the story. In terms of listening, I'll confess something. I find it very difficult to shut up. But the better I get at having conversations, the more I find I'm able to do just that. And towards the end of the conversation, I asked Chris a question about what he had learnt from this experience of helping Tegan through a really, very painful, very, very difficult time in her life. And you'll hear the question. And then after quite a long time, you'll hear Chris's answer. This is a trite question, but I'll ask it anyway. If you now, in late October 2007, could have said something to yourself the day you discovered that Tegan was seriously ill,
yeah.
Is there something you know now that you didn't know then that you wish you had?
So I think that probably the thing that I would have said to myself, you're not going to have to cope with this on your own. I think my initial reaction was, oh my God, selfishly, how am I going to cope with this? Actually, you in many ways you don't, Tegan has helped me cope with it. I think I thought she was scared and she wasn't. It was just me who was scared. And I think, as soon as you know that your child's not scared, suddenly you behave in a very different way. Yeah, because actually, you start to realise that you're the scared one, not them. And actually, then you need
The fear you need to address is yours,
Yeah,
not hers.
not hers.
So there were 19 seconds there. 19 seconds, quite a long time in a conversation between my question and Chris's answer. And during that 19 seconds, it was very tempting for me to reframe my question or to helpfully offer Chris a series of multiple choice options, or to ask a different question, or maybe even to steer Chris towards a little hunch that I had. And I didn't do any of those things, and I'm really glad I didn't. Because actually, just by letting it be, by letting that silence just be there between us, I think when Chris says you're not going to have to cope with this on your own, it sounds to me like that is coming from somewhere authentic. You know, it's coming from him. I don't think it's coming from me. I certainly hope not. And so the moral of this tale is that sometimes I think the best thing to say is very little, if anything at all. So the next example, this is Jane. And you heard Jane speaking at the beginning when she said, "Don't become your story." And you may have heard Jane's reference to a rape. Jane was raped when she was 14. She's 38 now. And the reason this is such a good example, I think, of this is that because that's a big event, a big event in someone's life, no matter what age you are. And sometimes, I think that the heart of a story isn't necessarily where you think it is anymore. Or maybe it's not where you expect it to be, because things have changed. And I think that sometimes if you do have a really, big, solid rock of an event in your life, then actually that rock in a way can obstruct new growth of a newer story, of a fresher story. And so in our conversation, I went to Switzerland to interview Jane because she feels safe in Switzerland. And Jane told me the story of her rape, of the attack, what she calls the attack. And she talked about it graphically, blow by blow. And it was a very compelling, very exciting conversation, actually, because it was really difficult and personal, but she felt very strong. She felt really strong, talking all the way through what happened and the court case afterwards and the disastrous relationship she had afterwards when she was, having consensual sex for the first time, and then later on when she got married and the disastrous marriage she had. She was really strong through all of these things. And then right at the end of the conversation, almost when the substance of it was over, kept the tape running, and she and I both realised, I think, that something else now is at the core of her story. And it's not her being raped. So have a listen to this.
I don't regret it. I know it sounds weird. I've never regretted the rape happening.
Really?
No.
Really?
Really.
Because?
Because I like who I am and how I've dealt with it. I don't like what it's done to other people. This is where I might get upset. I don't like what it's done to my brother. Because he's not a real person anymore. He's very, very troubled. I didn't know I was going to cry, so...
It's okay.
But I didn't know, I can't protect him and I can't make his decisions for him. He's chosen a path of being alone and not talking to anyone.
Okay.
He's the worst affected out of everyone.
Yeah, we haven't talked about him.
No. But I can't even talk about him because there's nothing to tell in that he doesn't talk to anyone anymore. He's just hidden away. He doesn't respond to anyone really.
Okay.
So that's a real scar. The only regret would be about him.
Things aren't always where you expect them to be. I think is what I learnt about that. And keep the tape rolling. All right, third example. This is a different kind of example, and I have constructed this into a story. This is more of an edit that you're about to hear, and there's music with it, and I've created a little form for it, so maybe I am a storyteller after all. Now, the reason I want to share this one is to show that being articulate comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes. You know, you don't have to be Stephen Fry to be eloquent. This is a little edit of a series of conversations that a colleague and I had with some 13-year-olds in a school in London. And they had been told a story of themselves. And that story was that they were difficult, negative, destructive, a nuisance. They were inarticulate and had pretty much already failed. And there was no point in going to school, and guess what? They weren't going to school. And so when we went in, we promised them one thing, and we promised them that we would listen to them. We would really listen to them. And in return, we asked for one thing, which was for permission to challenge them, which they gave us. And what we discovered with them was that they have a story that they would like to become. But it's not the one that they've been told. And I suppose if there's a lesson out of this conversation, this series of conversations that I would draw, it's that not everyone is used to being listened to. So, Daisy,
Right.
if you knew that the world was really listening to you, what would you say?
This is my time to tell you what I think. If you don't listen, then nothing's going to get done. If teachers respect me back, I could be a girl that has inspirations to be a lawyer, get on with my work, and then I wouldn't care what people think about me.
If teachers didn't shout, because when they shout it makes things worse. If you ask them for help, then they'll ignore you most of the time. Like, if you be bad ages ago, then they'll still remember and they'll hold it against you.
Because all these teachers in the school, like, because they're older, they think that they can just, like, boss us about, like we're, like, something at the bottom of their shoe and we're not.
They assume that I'm doing things when I'm not doing it. Because, like, I'm usually sitting near people that do everything else and then I get blamed for it.
If you explain that it wasn't you,
They don't listen.
They don't listen?
No.
Tell me more about them not listening.
No, just that you go to explain something and they say that they don't want to listen to you.
Why do you think they don't want to listen?
Don't know.
Well, consider it. Why would they not want to listen? Is there anyone in your life that you don't listen to?
No.
Really? Do you listen to everyone in your life?
No.
Okay. So the people that you don't listen to, why don't you listen to them?
Because they don't respect me.
So is it possible that the teachers think that you don't respect them?
Yeah.
Are they right?
No. Well, some of them.
He or she, the teacher, could stop, couldn't stop assuming that I'm doing stuff.
What could they assume?
They could assume that I'm a good child and I've got good expectations.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's imagine that teachers started from scratch with you, yeah, and did help you. Who could you be if they were like that to you?
Better.
In what kind of way?
I don't know.
Would you want to come to school?
I do want to come to school.
You do? Who could you be? What version of yourself could you be if you got a lot of respect? What could you do more of?
Work, because then I can focus more.
I wouldn't be as rude to them. I would listen more. I would learn more.
When do you feel you're really learning loads of stuff here?
When I feel I'm really learning. What, like lessons?
Yeah.
Yeah, PE.
PE?
Yeah.
And what is it about PE that means you learn?
Because the teacher in PE, listens to me, but all the other teachers don't. They're always like rushy. But the teacher is like down to earth, understands the kids and stuff. Good.
When I'm outside, I learn more. I don't learn that much in school.
Where do you learn? Where do you do your learning?
Just when I'm out.
Who do you learn from?
Friends.
What creates good trust for you?
Knowing that you can tell them anything and not just certain things.
Is trust important to you?
Yeah. Once somebody's broke the trust, it makes you think, can I really trust other people as well?
What would you say people are capable of when they're trusted? That they're not really capable of when they're not trusted?
Working together.
I could be a girl that has inspirations to be a lawyer, get on with my work, and then I wouldn't care what people think about me.
Would you like to do that?
Yeah.
How much?
Lots.
Thanks for listening.